You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from Newstalk ZB.
Newstalk ZB broadcasting live from SailGP Auckland. Great pleasure to be joined by SailGP Chief Executive Sir Russell Coutts. Sir Russell, lovely to see you. You co-founded SailGP 2018. Are you where you wanted to be, hoped you would be, sort of 5, 6, 7 years on?
Yeah, it's moved pretty fast, hasn't it? We're really thrilled with the developments. I mean, we set out to have a professional sports league like other professional sports leagues, where there's we can sign long-term agreements with partners, and of course, now this is the Rolex SailGP Championship, where we've signed a 10-year plus agreement with Rolex. So, and all the other global partners, Oracle, Mubadala, DP World, Emirates, Apex, and now Accor. I mean that's way ahead of where we thought we'd be at this present point in time, and they're all long contracts as well, and it's great to have those sort of partners on board.
Yeah, so the commercial model's going great. So too the viewer numbers, the eyeballs on this sport. Why do you think it has quickly attracted so much spectator attention? Well,
the sport's never had a consistent platform, amazingly before. So if you look at Formula One and you make you look at what they've done, they've got 24 events a year, right? So if you say that that's roughly one every two weeks, that creates the appointment to view. And so the viewer, the fan might not know where the next race is necessarily, but they know to search up the next race and find out that it's on. And of course they have their off season, so in some cases it's one a week, but there's a defined period of time where there are events on and the fans know that there's events on. We are still not even at that level at 13 events. We need to get to 20 odd events a year, and once we get to that stage we'll be able to jump this commercially again, because we'll then go into series within series. So for example in North America you might end up with 6 events, in Canada and the US. That of course will be great for our host broadcasters, media partners, but also the commercial partners involved as well. Great for the fans, because you can then have, and the same in Europe, the same in the Middle East, the same in Australasia, you then have the races. Of course they cover all the series, but the races that are focused within their time zones, and that really jumps it to the next level again.
How much of the attraction for spectators do you think is the fact that all the boats are the same? They're identical F50.
It's massive, because at the end of the day it comes down to the quality of the racing.
Yeah.
And we saw yesterday that any of these teams are capable of winning. If they put it together, they're capable of winning. Of course, the best teams are more consistent at this stage, but they're all good races. We've got the best sailors in the world out there racing in identical boats, and that I think is the reason why it's so close. You only have to make a slight mistake. And the other factor is they're not only identical boats, but we intentionally make them really difficult to sail. So for example, if we could automate certain parts of the flight control system and it would make it really easy to sail the boat, we don't. We actually make it really hard to sail the boat, so it sort of reflects sailing talent above just robotic type competition. And I think that makes it really interesting, and allowing the coaches to communicate with the boat live during the race is a big deal too. We haven't quite captured that on broadcast yet. Maybe it will end up being a second screen experience where the fan can also listen into their preferred team. We have some amazing technology in the pipeline now that where a fan will be able to go on board live, see the view on board their chosen boat. For example, if you're following the black foils, you'll be able to go on board their boat and watch the race from their perspective and listen to their comms. That might even be better than broadcast, for some of the fans, for sure. So we're excited about those sort of developments coming up. We've already got that technology working, by the way.
Oh, that's amazing. That will be a real attraction. So, as a world-class sailor yourself, put yourself on one of these boats. It's a difficult boat to sail, as you say. What do you need to do to sail it well?
Well, I haven't sailed them much. I think I've been twice, but and I haven't driven one. But they are incredibly difficult. It's like the analogy would be flying an aircraft with somebody controlling the thrust, somebody controlling the tail, somebody controlling each flap on each wing, and not that same person all the time either, because they've got to cross sides. So for example, when the flight controller is crossing sides, the driver's got to be flying the boat. So I think there's 32 actions that the teams have to perform in perfect time. So if they're half a second out with one of the actions, you see the boat go out of trim. And you see that all the time because it's so difficult to do, because it depends on the turn rate. Sometimes you're dictated by the other boats on the course. So all of these teams can fly the boat with 0 touchdowns around the course if they're on their own. But you put other boats on the course, it changes it, and all of a sudden it puts your timing out. You can't necessarily predict when they are going to manoeuvre. And so all of a sudden it's slightly rushed. Some of the timing comes out and the mistake gets made, the boat falls into the water and the passes happen, So it's really tough, and then that combination between the coaches and the sailors, I think there's a lot of learning to be done there, because, you can imagine when you're in the heat of the moment, you're in the heat of battle, and you've got 10 other boats on the course at the moment, soon to be 11, you've got a lot going on. And then the coach is looking at the coaches' staff is generally split between somebody looking at the data, somebody focusing on the tactics, and then the head coach, right, that's putting it all together. And just to figure out what to communicate with the team at that moment, because you can't tell them 10 things. No. It's like when in the NBA when they have a timeout, the coach generally only, the coaching staff now to get together and they say, what are we going to tell them? Right, and then they tell them basically one thing, maybe 2, but usually one thing. And so I think there's a lot of learning there as to, okay, what to tell them. Do we tell them that there's more breeze on the right-hand side of the course? Do we tell them that they're not using enough rudder differential? Do we tell them that they're moving the foil too much? Do we tell them that they should be using more wing twist? What is it? And so that's pretty cool, I think,
Absolutely. And amongst all that, you've thrown them onto T-foils as well. How did you assess their ability to sail on those yesterday?
Well, they're meant to be the best in the world, so, we don't want to make it too easy for them. But, yeah, you've seen that the good teams actually weren't aligned on how to because you've got the downforce on the rudder, on the high side, you've got the forces on the foils and the forces on the wing, and there was some debate over how to best utilise that. I think the Australians and actually the Brazilian team locked onto it the best first, and then the other teams have been playing catch-up. So
we've got your son in a bit later on. Proud dad watching your son become a world champion in the moth class?
Yeah, he's done well. Did really well. There's a group of young sailors up in our small sailing club in Manly that we're really proud of. They're leading the world in the moth class right now, and that's, there's some really good sailors in that class. The Diego Boutin was one of them, for example, so, and Sebastian Schneider and so forth. There's some great sailors in that class, and so it's a real feather in their cap that they've reached that sort of level. And of course they are all looking at this league to they probably believe now that they could step in and drive. I don't think they probably could, but that's their ambition.
Just to finish, let's zoom ahead a bit. You already alluded to it, the growth of SailGP. What's your vision, Sir Russell, for this event or this series 5 years from now, let's say, 10 years from now?
Well, I think we're going to add 2 more teams for next season. So we will go to a split fleet format then. So we'll go to 7 and 7, and then probably 2 more teams the following year, so 8 and 8. We'll add more venues. We want to continue to grow our audience, so we're up around 20 million plus dedicated viewership per event now, distributing to 212 territories, countries and territories worldwide. So that's fantastic. I think the future looks really, really bright. Of course, we want to keep developing the technology, so we've got the lighter foils coming on stream. We've got a really super cool propulsion system developed in conjunction with Hamilton Jet here in New Zealand that will a little bit like the driver assistance in Formula One, where in super light wind conditions that will help get the boats up onto the foils. And obviously there'll be rules around that. It's a very controversial move in terms of the sailing world, just like allowing the coaches to communicate during racing. That's not allowed in any other form of the sport. We're not afraid of a bit of controversy. So, I think that's going to really move the sport forward. And, it's now now the athletes are starting to earn some decent money out of it. We've upped the prize money to 12.8 million, and we're going to, every time we sign a global partner, we're just going to keep increasing that. So, future looks bright.
Fantastic. You enjoying being in Auckland? You must be enjoying
12.8 million US.
Let's get the currency right. You're enjoying being in Auckland? You must be enjoying being here. It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, I was really happy with the way the event it was supported yesterday. There was a great crowd there, great vibe in the viaduct. I think local businesses were doing well out of it, which is what we want to see. I'd like to. We've already sort of started the talk about coming back here long term. Which I think is the real benefit for a venue. If we can put together a 5-year, for example, term, and you come back every year. It's all very well to have a great one-off event, but if you can come back year after year and build the brand equity and build the awareness, then you will get more people travelling from Australia and so forth, and even the US coming down here for the event, and then holidaying in New Zealand, which is of course what it's all about. So we're certainly keen to do that. We wanted to try Auckland and see if it worked. It clearly has. So we're up, talking about a long-term arrangement.
Thanks for popping in, Sir Russell. I know it's a busy weekend for you. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to Newstalk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.